Mishcon Academy digital sessions. Conversations on the legal topics affecting businesses and individuals today.
Welcome to the Mishcon Academy digital session with Alastair Campbell. And we'd like to thank him very much for coming in to discuss his new book. Alastair requires little introduction, but I'll give you a brief background. He was born in Keighley, Yorkshire, to Scottish parents.
Keith Lee,
sorry.
GHTH, one of those dodgy ones.
Okay, sorry. Bad start. He studied languages at Cambridge, which he didn't enjoy before joining the Mirror's graduate scheme, where he rose to become political editor. In 1993, he moved to Today, and then shortly after that, he joined the Labour Party as its press secretary. He masterminded the New Labour election success and was the Downing Street press secretary between 1997 and 2000, and then the director of Downing Street Communications between 2000 and 2003. During this time, he was seen by many as the de facto deputy PM. Since leaving government, he's forged a successful career as an author, publisher, consultant, and campaigner. He spends a lot of time campaigning for greater awareness on mental health issues, and his new book, Living Better, How I Learned to Survive Depression, has just been published. First question, why did you write the book?
But I think where it came from, the thinking in it, is that I did a TV documentary about depression.
Yeah.
And anybody who's ever done a TV documentary knows that you do literally hundreds of hours of work, and most of it never sees the light of day. So partly I was thinking, I've got all this stuff, what I'm going to do with it. I think there's three things I want to come out of it in the main. The first is I hope that somebody who has depression, whether now or at any time in their lives, can look at this book and find specific things that will help them. I tweeted this morning and put on Instagram a picture of an Amazon review that came up last night, which honestly kind of had me holding back tears this morning. It was somebody who said that they were about to kill themselves. And somebody suggested they have a look at the book, and they said it pulled them back. The second thing, I hope that somebody who doesn't get depression, and hopefully never will, gets a better understanding of what depression is. And then the third thing is the point about the broader campaign. And then I think if there's a fourth reason why I've written it, it's because, in a way, I want to honour the lives and struggles of members of my family that you and everybody else out there has never heard of.
And I guess that leads to the question, where do you think it does all come from?
I mean, I honestly don't know. I think there is, on my dad's side of the family, there is, quite a lot of drinking and probably quite a lot of depression and maybe undiagnosed.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's hereditary. I think our minds are wired in different ways, and I think I don't know where mine comes from, and part of the reason for the documentary maybe was to really try to find out. And with my own psychiatrist, for example, who I've been seeing now for 15 years, he's a very important person in my life, I trust him completely. He still thinks there's some hidden gem in there somewhere that we haven't found.
Something that happened in your early life?
Yeah, which I don't. I just think we've...
You've said it all.
I think so, yeah. And it's like,
years down the line.
my parents were good to me.
Yeah.
I had a good childhood. So I don't know is the honest answer.
I think it'd be interesting to hear what happened when you had your first mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Where it led to.
Okay. It's complicated because it was a psychotic breakdown.
Yeah.
And the thing about psychosis is that you don't know what's real and what's not. So there are bits in there that I'm 100% convinced were real.
Yeah.
But given that at the time I was hearing voices, hearing music, seeing things that other people were telling me weren't there, then I can't be 100% sure. But to give you the kind of the background, I overworked, overdrank, and I ended up in Scotland. I was out on a trip with Neil Kinnock, who was then leader of the Labour Party, and I literally cracked up. And the build-up, it sounds like it was sudden. The build-up had been going on for weeks. And eventually I cracked, and then what happened was I got arrested. I was behaving very oddly in a public place, and then taken to the police station, went absolutely crazy in the cell.
Is that physically or just in your...
Both, yeah. I mean, physically I was like, banging the wall and took all my clothes off. I was just absolutely away with the fairies, hearing stuff and responding to it, not responding to it. They got me a doctor. Doctor came. They found a friend of mine that lived about 20 miles away. He came and picked me up, took me to hospital, and that's where I was for a while.
In the book, there seems to be a couple of elements, and you say this yourself, where you got lucky. You got lucky there in the sense that, but for a bit of this chance, maybe you'd just be another person on the street.
I think the short answer is almost certainly, and that's why I've written about luck.
Yeah.
These policemen who one of my kind of unfulfilled hopes in life is that one of them will get in touch and say, look, I think I was that copper.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have known who I was. I was just this guy in this council building who was emptying his pockets on the floor and emptying a bag and talking to things that weren't there. And trying to work out why I didn't have blood on my face because I thought the inside of my head had exploded.
What is it like living with you? But also, in general, how do you think mental health impacts on those who have to those whose loved ones have mental health difficulties?
Well, what it's like living with me, as I say to her every morning, she is utterly blessed. There are hundreds of millions of women around the world who would like to be where you are now.
Yes.
But you got the jackpot.
Yeah.
Well, I think, what she says is it's difficult but never boring. And no, listen, people who are the families of people who are struggling with mental health problems, they get no support at all. Actually, you could argue, I think sometimes it's worse for them. At least when you're kind of, away with it, you're so wrapped up in your own world and, you're sort of locked into it. Whereas for them, it's like, I think the one thing that's absolutely helped us both, two things really. One is my openness. Yeah. I never used to be open.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I think that's been really good is me finally in 2005 understanding and realising I needed somebody outside the family to help.
Yeah. So you talk in the book about you have this depression scale.
So my scale is this 1 to 10. And it's just like when I wake up or when I'm brushing my teeth or shaving or whatever, I just have this very, very short conversation with myself, which is, how are you? And I don't give myself a number.
Yeah.
If I'm close to 1, that's dangerous on the manic side. Okay. So I have to be a bit careful. Now, often there's nothing you can do about that. And then if I'm over this side, 6, 7, 8, 9, then I really got to watch out. And I never give myself 10 because 10 is suicide.
You talk a bit about suicide in this. And
I talk quite a lot about suicide.
Yeah, and it makes you very angry when there's sort of almost a criticism of those who do it or feel like it.
Yeah.
It's not. People are so wrapped up at that point, but it's not a selfish act.
I don't get angry at this because I understand why it happens, but I do always correct people. If somebody says so-and-so committed suicide, I said, no, they didn't commit suicide. You commit a crime and you commit a sin.
Yeah.
Suicide is neither a crime nor a sin. It's what people do when they are absolutely, desperately mentally ill. So could you rephrase that and say he took his own life, he ended his own life. He didn't commit suicide. That's what suicidal ideation is about. You're thinking, it's not just about the pain you've in yourself, you're thinking about the pain you cause other people.
Something like that happened when you left government.
Yeah, and that absolutely. That I think I used this word in the book, that it was literally felt like a decompression.
Yeah.
And I record a conversation about this, and thought this today because David Blunkett was on the World at One at lunchtime, talking a lot more sense than the current government doing about anything. And he came round to see us for dinner, and the phone went, and it was actually Tony Blair, even though I'd left. And I'm in the doorway talking to Tony on the phone, and I'm half listening to Grace and David, my daughter, and David Blunkett. Grace would have been, 9, 10, 11, something. And So David said, so what's it like having your dad home? Yeah, she said, it's all right. So what does he do all day? She said, well, when I go to school in the morning, he's sitting there on that sofa having a cup of coffee. And when I come home at night, he's lying there fast asleep. And that's true, I was spending the day on that sofa.
And then it manifested in
Self-harm.
Yes.
Yeah. Fiona and I weren't getting on again. And Fiona said, why don't we go for a walk? And again. So we went for a walk, and we're out on this walk and up in Hampstead Heath near Kenwood. And I literally started punching myself in the face. I mean, and I literally hard punches. And that was when I knew. I could see Fiona was terrified. I was actually quite terrified by that. I'd never done that before.
And it was obviously not premeditated, it just
exploded, yeah. It exploded. And I think what it was, this feeling that I've done the hard stuff. I mean, I gave up drink. I've given up the job because that's what you want me to do. And this is shit. And I can't get rid of this thing.
There's a number of practicals. You talk about your jam jar.
The jam jar actually came from a British woman who lives in Canada.
Yeah.
And I went to see her for the documentary. She did make the film.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how this is connected with people. And, I think, and it's so simple. She basically said, she's called Janine Austin, she's a geneticist. Yeah. And she says that, if you look at your life as a jam jar, so there's your jam jar, and down the bottom there are your genes. Yeah. Just because you've got those genes does not mean you'll be ill. Mm-hmm. Right? You might be, but it's not automatic. But there's nothing you can do about genes. Your parents are your parents, your grandparents are your parents, your background is your background. Well, just remember, you're Canadian, aren't you? So, yeah, the audience doesn't know what I'm talking about there. There's somebody in the room. It's not just me and him. So there's the jam jar, there's the genes, and then your life fills up the jam jar.
Yeah.
Key stuff good, key stuff bad. And it all mixes up, and most of the time, most of us keep this fairly well managed. But if your life becomes unmanageable, your jam jar explodes and you're ill.
Yeah.
That's her theory. And she says, what we do is we spend all our time trying to undo. Whereas what we should be doing is trying to grow the jam jar so we can put more of life in it.
On politics, the world seems to be going a little crazy right now. And so I guess the question is, where do you see the Labour Party is at right now? And also, more broadly, sort of politics as a whole.
I think politics around the world is in a really dangerous place. Mm. Populism, of which Trump is the global poster boy. Yeah. And I saw a far-right rally in Germany last week. His face was on a lot of the flags.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. But I think that, him, Johnson here, Orban, Putin, China, what's happening in Poland, there's a lot of stuff going on there that's really quite worrying. And I think what's happening here is really, really worrying. I really do. I think that this, here we are, we're in a law firm. I think what happened the other day in relation to this common market bill, internal market bill, it's okay to break the law in a sort of, if it's okay, if I like it, I don't mind it.
Yeah, so imagine everyone in every court saying that.
I mean, I just find it incredible that it's happening. Mm-hmm. And actually, the people aren't nearly as up in arms as they should be.
No, at this point.
Well, but that's how it works. Stuff gets normalised. Trump did stuff on day one that 20 years ago would have done for a president. And he's now, according to the Washington Post, told 20,000 plus lies as president. Well, Johnson's not done 20,000, but he's done a few. And he's done them in the House of Commons, where it used to be resigning offence. So that's normal. That's the normalisation of abnormal behaviour. And the media, I think our media is a really big part of the problem we've got with our politics. I mean, those newspapers which back Brexit cannot bring themselves to say Brexit was a disaster. Yeah. Those newspapers which back Boris Johnson cannot bring themselves to say this guy is morally and competentially, if that word exists, unsuitable to be Prime Minister. They can't bring themselves to say it. They know it's true, but they can't bring themselves to say it. I think there's corruption at the heart of this government as well. I think some of these contracts on COVID, they are corrupt. Where are Labour now? I think Keir is doing a far better job than Jeremy Corbyn. But I think that Keir doing well is important, but insufficient. You need the team to do really well. You need the negatives to be absolutely eradicated, the biggest of which was anti-Semitism. That's got to be dealt with properly. But most importantly, you then need the forward policy agenda. And, they're not there yet because everybody's dealing with COVID and Brexit.
I'm not talking about this workplace, but workplaces in general. Do you think it is still better for your career to keep quiet?
I think it can be. And I think that's a really bad thing. So, yeah, I think that's a real problem. But that's why I think you do need, and the time to change, I don't know if Mishcon is a time to change employer. If it's not, it should be.
Yeah.
Time to change is a mental health campaign where you sign up and there are certain principles of employment that you then sign up to. And if you're not, it's a scandal.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if we are, but if we aren't, we will be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think I'll...
We are.
Steph says we are.
Well, it's confirmed we are.
Okay, well then, we are. There you go. Paragons of virtue.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sadly that I think is all we've got time for.
Okay,
So thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For coming in and talking about your book.
And by the way, they're not making a donation to me if they sign. They're making a donation to mine.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
An email will go around about the book if you would like to purchase it. This will then be a donation that is given to Mike, not to Alastair. And yes, on the front of it, it says from Stephen Fry, says, "This book could save lives." Well, I mean, by the sounds of it, it already has.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
I think it certainly will, and I would recommend all of us, really. I think it's brilliant.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
The Mishcon Academy Digital Sessions. To access advice for businesses that is regularly updated, please visit mishcon.com.